The government is letting more polluting cars into the country, and they're and they're going, I don't know why, but nobody's buying EVs at the moment. Yeah, let's have a look.
This Christchurch car yard has plenty of electric vehicles on the lot, but selling them comes at a cost.
It's a tough EV market, but we are still moving them. But we are unfortunately moving them at a loss.
It's a challenge nationwide after the government last year scrapped the EV rebate, known as the Clean Car Discount.
Well, it's tumbled the EV market, and it's turned a lot of people off the EV market when the RUCs come in and the clean car got dropped on it.
Now a warning from the industry.
So just so you're clear, that insider, that person working in the system, is saying that road user charges, which we all acknowledge had to come at some stage, but getting rid of the clean car rebate is the reason that he's finding it difficult to sell. That's his reasoning as a small business owner,
as a car
Mr.
dealer.
Luxon.
Yeah.
Yes.
Has prompted the government to step in.
Today we're announcing necessary, urgent changes to the Clean Vehicle Standard, which will help avoid big increases to the cost of import.
Yeah, why are they necessary, Mr. Luxon? What's happened in the past 18 months or so to make these be necessary? Like, is anything? Can we identify anything? Yes? No? And I'm going to go to the actual press conference today because some stuff's not covered in this, and it's fascinating to hear. Talk about running away from, but it's worked until this point. A version of that.
Cars.
Alongside the Clean Car Discount were annual targets for imported vehicles and how much gas they guzzled. Balancing higher emitting models with enough lower emission vehicles would meet the target and earn credits, while failure would result in charges for the importer.
Used importers are paying penalties on over 70% of the stock that they're bringing in, and those
because they're choosing to bring in cars that are worse for our environment. Because they're choosing to bring in cars that, you know why they're bringing them in? I'll explain, Whānau. This is my opinion. It doesn't say it in this. They're bringing those cars in because guess what? They're getting them cheaper. And guess why they're getting them cheaper? Because they're not able to go to any other country. So New Zealand becomes the dumping ground for worse emitting cars, which means for these dealers, they're buying them dirt cheap and they're paying a penalty on them and they're still making stacks of cash because Australia doesn't want them. America's the wrong side of the world. Australia doesn't want them. So New Zealand becomes the dumping ground for all of those major emitting vehicles that are still left within the second-hand car market. Yes? Keep going, eh? There we go.
penalties can be well over $1,000 per vehicle.
Today, the government announced a temporary slash on charges by up to 80%. A Toyota RAV4 GX Hybrid has a current charge of $361. Now, that'd be reduced to $80. This Ford Ranger Raptor...
Massive.
Have a guess. So
Oh my God. Okay.
The fee on the Raptor. The Raptor, like the worst in the world.
Are our most polluting private vehicles.
So to bring it into the country, that would be so that's basically, we'll call that the tariff, make it easy. The tariff on bringing that into the country was $5,500. And the government's like, we don't want people to have to pay too much for these cars that happen to all be terrible emitting cars. So what do you reckon? Shall we have a guess? What's it going to go down to? Go on.
Under 2?
Okay, we'll have a look.
Would see its charge reduced from $5,500 to around $1,200.
Oh, Jesus Christ.
And here's something else. Just remember, this is the government, and we hold them accountable to the same standard. This is the government that tried to convince New Zealand that supermarkets wouldn't pass on the cost of taking GST off fruit and veggies. But now they're trying to convince you that car dealers who are currently selling this car at a certain price are going to pass on the $3,000 and a bit. A supermarket wouldn't pass 10 cents on if you're buying an apple, but a car dealer is going to pass on $3,000. Interesting.
100, and this Corolla would see charges reduced by more than $6,500. Overall, the government estimates the changes will avoid $264 million in net charges that could have been passed on to consumers.
We had some of the highest rates of uptake of electric vehicles in the world with the clean car discount. The government absolutely collapsed all of that when they cancelled it.
How much responsibility does the government take for the current situation?
No, we stand by the decisions that were made on the best available information to us at the time. We are now acting in accordance with what we think the public deserve and need and what the industry need, and we're responding to their calls and doing the right thing.
As the government has said, this is interim relief, so it's great to see this over the next year or two while we have a conversation about how can we fix the clean car standard itself, because it's not working for used importers.
Very, 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 very important comment there. It's not working for, did we hear it, Whānau? It's not working for the used importers. It's not working for the importers. Gentleman here didn't say it's not working for the customer or the consumer or for businesses. It's not working for used vehicle importers. That means this government is changing the rules around importing vehicles that emit more carbon, that are worse for our environment, so it's better for used car importers. That's why they're doing it.
At this point, I think the next government in press conferences that the Nationalists stripping the copper out of the walls of Parliament. Like, they're just wrecking everything. Like, I cannot overstate. You look up how much pollution a Ford Ranger does. They are just not a clean, modern vehicle. You can see yourselves in your own towns where you are, how many spotlessly clean Ford Rangers are pulling the most unhinged manoeuvres that can't fit in car parks. They're massively unsafe for pedestrians. There is no redeeming feature for those vehicles at all. It is just for people that want that hard man image that comes with a double cab ute that you can't even fit a proper load in the back for. But yes, we are, as you said, we are going to end up as a dumping ground for inefficient, dirty vehicles that cannot be sold anywhere else. You look at what's happening at Europe at the moment, where countries are just going, oh, fuck batteries, let's go. But this perception that it's a spiral effect, a snowball effect, is that the dealers don't feel like they can bring in EVs because they'll get stuck with them. It's because they were bringing in shitty ones to begin with, absolutely thrashed Leafs, that nobody wants now because there are better options. And so because they can't move the second-hand Leafs that they imported because they were literally getting paid to import them, then they go, oh, EVs as a whole, nobody wants them.
Well, let's get on to that, shall we? Because in the actual press conference, these questions were asked. This is only 45 seconds. But one reporter wants to know what responsibility this government takes right now for where we're at with vehicles.
You have to take some responsibility for the falling demand because you got rid of those very incentives?
Well, the feedback from the industry is that some of the demand a couple of years ago was, in some cases, artificial, because they had a whole lot of what they regard as stranded electric vehicles that they kind of pumped into the market and maybe sold at a discount at various different points. The reality is we've got to deal with the facts that are in front of us, which is that demand for EVs are not there, and I think people understand that in a difficult economic environment with the cost of living, paying the upfront capital costs of EVs is challenging. So we are making some changes in the short term while we do a full review of the standard.
So, I don't know if you heard that, everybody, but in there, when the reporter asked him if they have some responsibilities for the fall in demand, Minister Bishop, as a part of his answer, said, quote, the demand for EVs are not there, end quote. So you need to ask the question, why is the demand for EVs not there? Here's a newsroom article quite early on in 2024. EV sales plummet after clean car scheme scrapped. Electric, now this has a caveat. Electric vehicles have fallen from 1 in 4 new vehicles purchased in 2023. 1 in 4, 25% of the new vehicles sold in 2023 were EVs, to 1 in 26 in the first month of this year after the government scrapped the clean car discount. Now, Chewie will tell you that obviously there was a massive uptake of buying EVs in the last month or so of 2023 because it was about to go. So let's just have a look at something that might be more accurate across the board, not the few months after. Value of electricity vehicles imports falls nearly 60%. The value of fully electric vehicles imported fell nearly 60% in June over a year earlier. So, well, that's the value. That's not necessarily the uptake. But it's unquestionable that the demand for EVs dropped pretty much in line with their the national government's cancelling of the clean car discount. And as Chewie has educated me, and I'm sure will educate us all now, at the time where they cancelled the EV clean car discount, it was paying for itself. So it wasn't costing the taxpayer a cent. It was paying for itself, and 1 in 4 new purchases were EVs. And they cancelled it, and then the EV market crashed. Do you want to add to that, Chewie?
Oh, Jesus, what to say? Look, this government is not seeing the trend that is overseas. It's not seeing the massive pivot towards electric vehicles by all the main producers. Like Tesla has an enormous market share in Europe, even though they're hemorrhaging it. BYD has massively expanded everywhere, and this is being driven in a large part because of the standards that the EU is putting out there for emissions. It has kind of what we were wanting to do with smoking, right? Every year the emissions would go down, and so they've put incentives in place, and they've put things like congestion zones. Like when I was recently over in London, the change that I have seen over the last 10 years of how many electric vehicles there are in London, because they're exempt from congestion charging.
Yeah.
And so people in London are like, well, it's a no-brainer then. I'm going to get an EV, and they're smaller and they're more efficient and all of this sort of stuff. We are reaching now a point where like the myth of like the high capital cost to get an EV, that we're at parity. BYD announced this or last week
the Atto one.
They're bringing a car in that is at the equivalent price new as a Toyota Corolla.
Yep, Atto 1, 29,990. So it's under 30k, brand new EV.
The car that I have, you can pick up second hand, and it's a brilliant car, $14,000. Like the myth of like nobody can afford EVs is well gone. Bishop himself drives a Leaf. His boss has 2 Teslas.
Well, no,
like
even
these
that.
Guys,
in that press conference, Bishop says, we're a 2 EV. I love EVs. Yeah, but you may love EVs, but there might be a paycheck at some stage in the future from another group that don't like EVs quite so much. Maybe that's got something to do with it.
So and again, they're not talking about the benefits. But like, again, if someone had some brains, like I have some criticisms of the clean car rebate scheme. Like maybe there was a better place to put some government money, but it was a solid plan overall until it changed hands and these guys started picking at it. It was that double-edged sword of like, we want to get rid of the dirty emitting vehicles. We're going to do that with a stick of these fees. That is going to pay for making EVs cheaper and the benefits of bringing that level of fleet up and having that second-hand market there. The only problem was they didn't have enough control. And we just saw dealers bringing in shitty Leafs rather than other cars with more longevity. Like a local car dealer here in Dunedin just tried to like massively defraud that whole process, and he got caught for it, and his business folded because of it. But yeah, it's so dumb. You cannot. I think this is a core reflection of this government has no vision, has no long-term planning, cannot think of a better future for this country or for the people in it, and is just taking the worst advice from the worst lobby groups and not doing anything for us. It is for the second-hand car dealers fucking association or whatever, or the fossil fuel companies, or the mining companies, or the tobacco companies, the real estate association. Nothing for me. Nothing. If you're on an average wage and you're renting, you got a couple of kids, get fucked. How dare you? How dare you expect anything from this government? And it's just another slice of the issue that we're dealing with these guys, and we've got to get rid of them. Oh.
We're going to play one more clip from the press conference, and we're going to sign off for the night. He was asked how much responsibility does this government have for the increase in cost to the consumers of vehicles. And there's one part I want to particularly highlight in here, and that's when Bishop goes to explain who was paying for these EVs, who was subsidising them. We actually know, we've said it now, right? We know that the last couple of months of that clean car discount, the who was paying for it was the people buying the large emitters. The scheme was positive. There was no taxpayers' money going towards it. But Bishop has a different story, and even with that different story, I'd like to address it quickly.
How much responsibility does the government take for the added costs on car dealers and consumers?
Well, the scheme itself was established in 2023. We made some changes to bring it into line with Australia, which was supported by the industry at the time and supported by many people. And I think most people said that's pretty reasonable. At the time, the advice was that it was going to be essentially a sensible change. It was going to lead to a glide path over time that people could meet, and it would essentially, work in the way that it's intended. That hasn't transpired. Now, at that point, government's got a choice. We can either put our hand in the air and say, well, we're not going to make any changes. That's life. Deal with it.
You made a change in 2024. You made a change at the start of last year, which some in the industry say put the industry out of whack. I've spoken to two of them today. They say that scrapping the clean car discount put the industry out of whack. So how much responsibility does the government take for the current situation?
Well, we stand by our decision to scrap the clean car discount. The clean car discount, just so we're really clear what it was.
Just in case you need to understand what it is, and then I'll speak to what it says.
I'm going to explode on this, aren't I?
Maybe.
Decision to scrap the clean car discount. The clean car discount, just so we're really clear what it was general taxpayers paying for people to buy cheaper EVs. So that is basically people who could already afford to buy an EV. So on average, middle to upper income New Zealanders being subsidised by every other New Zealander at a time when the government is running enormous budget deficits. We do not think it was justifiable for general taxpayers to use borrowed taxpayer money that we will have to repay at vast expense later to subsidise middle class and wealthy New Zealanders to buy EVs.
That money to
that is not a defensible public policy position. That's why we scrap.
Chewie. The theme of what Mr. Bishop just said, that it's not fair that general taxpayers end up subsidising people to buy EVs. So the questions I have for Mr. Bishop, then why is it okay that general taxpayers are subsidising landlords? Why is it okay that general taxpayers are subsidising big tobacco? So if it's not okay for general taxpayers, I don't agree with you, by the way, Mr. Bishop, that it was general. But if we take that as right, why was it not okay for general taxpayers to subsidise EVs getting into the marketplace? If that wasn't okay, then why are we subsidising big mining? Why, Mr. Bishop, do you find the line of going, oh, heavens, no, the taxpayer couldn't pay for that when it comes to EVs, but not landlords big tobacco, or mining? That's what I would like to know from you, Minister. Maybe you could come back to us on that.
I mean, you're right on the bigger issue, but even on this direct issue, he's wrong. Like, the idea was that it was going to be self-funding, although it needed, using investment terms, seed money to get it going.
Yeah.
Right? And his vision is so short-sighted that he can't see the flow-on benefit. What was the point? To get people to buy more EVs, which then cycle through into the second-hand market, that then bring the price, the entry point for EVs, like when I bought mine, made them more affordable. I didn't use a clean car discount, but there was enough downward pressure in those EVs that it dropped the price 10 grand in the 6 months that I was looking for my car. That was the benefit.
I just, part of me is very frustrated. It was interesting hearing Mikey in that, because she had a bit of a crack and she cut him off and talked over him, but no one in that room went, why is it not okay for taxpayers to subsidise EV sales, but it is okay for taxpayers to subsidise big tobacco, to subsidise landlords, to subsidise petroleum companies, to subsidise mining companies? Why is that okay, Mr. Bishop? But of course it didn't get asked.
Like, it very much like everything else, their mouth is moving and they're saying one thing, but all of their actions play against that. They're kind of like, oh, it's unfortunate that EV sales have tanked and we have nothing to do with it. But you've put road user charges on. I can live with that. Like, both governments always signaled that they would get to a point where they would do that. But it would have been more sensible for them to just do the work and roll out road user charges for all passenger vehicles.
Yeah.
So that's still coming. Road user charges, they're talking about 2029, I think, for all passenger vehicles. And I think at that point, with the influx of cheaper EVs and more choice in the market, and the performance has increased and the range has increased, that comparison between petrol and electric, there will be a switch there.
Yeah.
Where they're on the same level playing field. I can tell you now that it is a lot cheaper to drive from an EV. And that should be the thing, is that they're good cars, they're fun to drive, and ultimately they're cheaper.
I think you were talking before about the reason to get an EV and how easy it is. If I still lived in Auckland and I was driving 45 minutes to work each day, like there and back sort of thing, the amount of money I would be saving on fuel actually would lend me to being able to get an EV, whatever you call it, on finance. And it would still I'd then probably be paying the same, but driving an EV, and then once I'd paid for it, would be driving cheaper. I don't know why anyone who lives anywhere out the motorways, whether it's out in Helensville or down in Papakura or, up on the North Shore, isn't driving an EV right now. And they probably would have if Labor had a won last time and that discount was still there, which it's now not. I also want to say, Chewie, this purely comes in side by side. Like, these are one after each other. You can see at the time, 10:51 a.m. Otterbot says yes, Chewie, and the very next one at 10:51 p.m. I said a.m. p.m. Right on, Pat. So every week we're getting the love.
We're right.
We're getting the love. Let me say this, citizen, when is a reporter going to step and ask? You do know that no one believes you when you say you acted on the best info you had at the time, right? Yeah. Well, that's much of a muchness. Okay, whānau. Sorry, you're not quite finished?
I've just done some quick math just because I'm curious, because I've never really done this. For those of you that drive petrol vehicles, I never did. So my first car was an electric car. I just want you to do in your head, how much would it cost you to drive 1,000 kilometres just in fuel costs, right? You don't play road user charges. It's just fuel costs. Like if you can put that in the chat, if you know how much you would pay over 1,000 kilometers.
The car I sold, that big, it was a V6 Outlander, so it was particularly juicy. Yeah. Probably $300, maybe $250 to $300. The fuel alone, that doesn't include depreciation or tires but just for the fuel.
Just
$250 to $300. Yeah.
Sweet. My car, $136. Does
that include road users?
That's including road user charges.
Wow, because that's 70 in it for 1,000.
76, I think it is. 76 and like $12 a charge.
So going on what I've said, if in a major metro you did like 1,000 Ks within 2 weeks, which is probably not unheard of, 500 Ks. Not for everyone, but if you're at the end of the motorways, then you've got about $250 to play with to pay off an EV, and you'd be paying the same for a brand new EV as you would be paying it. That's what I'm saying. I live in Dunedin, so it's not a formula you can use here. But if you're in Auckland, potentially if you're further out, maybe in Hamilton, but if you're in Wellington, probably not Christchurch. But if you're doing sort of that hour drive a day, or if you're doing 30, 40, 50 Ks a day, probably would just pay for itself to get a new one on finance. Close to it, at least.
So Peter's got the example that I'm looking for, and a very popular, seen as very economical car, is Suzuki Swift.
Yeah.
He's saying between 200 and 250.
Yeah.
So that's the yardstick. Like if they were just talking about, like, doesn't even have to be, you want to be kind to the environment. Just
freedom bucks.
You want a car with good performance that's fun to drive, that needs fuck all maintenance, and is super, super cheap to run. Like like you don't even have to think about the charging network. You plug it in with a 3-point plug when you get home. You put 50 kilometers in it overnight. It's job done. It's so easy.
But let me tell you this about the charging network. You don't worry about that, obviously, if you're driving to work and home. But in January of this year, I drove from the bottom of the South Island to literally the top of the North Island in our EV. The charging network is fine. It's a little bit sparse sort of south of Timaru. Honestly, it is. Going to Wanaka in March, and I've already had a look, and the only thing out there is a BP, so I'm going to have to get the BP app. South of Timaru, it can be problematic. I was so impressed with the charging system I used, and I'm not going to tell you who it is, because I talked to them about doing another road trip with us for Waitangi, and they said no, so fuck them. And we talked to a couple of EV companies about a road trip, and they all said no, so fuck you too. But EV around the country EV network is not a problem. Every centre you go into, and lots in the middle, like in Waiurua? Basically at the base of Mount Ruapehu, they're there, so they're everywhere, the drip. And if you are one of those people who is involved with an EV network or an EV car company, you've still got time to get in for potentially, not that we're planning it yet, but a road trip next year to Waitangi. Mail at bhn.nz. Is there a fast charge option with EVs? A fast charge option for what? Yes, because the answer is yes. You can get a fast charger installed in your home, or you can use the ones north of Timaru, because basically south of Timaru, there's not many fast chargers.
I think they're working their way south. So my example is that my EV is a relatively short range one. It's a 200 kilometer range. So if I'm doing a long trip up north, I'm driving out of Dunedin with a full battery. I'm stopping in Oamaru for 10-15 minutes. I'm driving on to Timaru again, 10-15 minutes. Like, these are places that I would want to stop and get something to eat, or go to the bathroom, or let the dog out for a walk anyway. It hasn't changed how I would drive, even if I had a car that went a 600 kilometer range. Like, I just like to get out, stretch my legs, and be alert as a driver. It's no great umbrage. I charge my car once every 2 weeks.
But here's something else to know, and this is something that you learn. EVs, we're going to lessons about EVs now. EVs are the opposite of combustion engines. Combustion engines around town are terrible for fuel economy. On the open road, they're good. EVs, it's the other way around. As an example, my EV has got a range of 520 Ks. I did the numbers on it the other day when I was driving around town, Chewie, and I had 55% left in my battery and 341 Ks on the thing. That's a range of 627 Ks. Now, that's because I was driving around town, and most EVs are most efficient around that sort of 38 to 45 kilometers per hour. And if you're driving in a city, lights, stop, go, that's what you travel. Think about your phone battery, right? You've got a phone, the battery in here, if you use your phone lots and you drive it hard, eats through the battery more quickly. If you don't, it lasts better. So something for someone to know before you buy is actually, if you're mostly using your EV around town, that's even better, because the range is better at those kind of 30 to 50 Ks an hour. And open road, it's not as efficient. It's the opposite. There you go, Chewie. That's the one thing I know about EVs, Chewie. You know everything else? That's my one thing.
Oh, honestly, just go and test drive one if you can. If you're thinking about it, like, just go and test drive one. They are just so much fun. So much fun to drive.